德州马上叫不了。
These are exact examples in terms of time points. And if it's this color, bluish or reddish, that's an indicator of what was published in 2012 in the first wave for the healthy human subject, and what will be published very soon in Nature. So what I'm trying to show you here is that basically we have a lot more samples, as well as a whole lot more technical replicas of the data that essentially just represents a tripling of that information. Just as a sort of quality control point of view, we performed a lot of different types of analysis. Curtis introduced that very well. But if there are any concerns about how that data behaves during the course of the project, there shouldn't be. You can't really see it, but these are color-coded by body size, and their shape is associated with a circle or square, depending on what part of the project it came from. You can see a very nice intermingling of the circle and square. So essentially all the data across the entire project is behaving very nicely. You want to call attention to Jason's poster that will present a lot of the results that Curtis showed, as well as some others, which is a very exciting project that's in collaboration with Curtis and my group, as well as Rod Knight, and represented an enormous amount of computing time in terms of the amount of assemblies and annotation that we had to do, so we're quite proud of that data. You've already seen these presentations from the 3 ICMP studies, and what I want to do is just motivate you to think a little bit about the very rich clinical data that was associated with this. Everything, including the subjects that we had, the time points. There's lots of primary data, there's lots of derived data, and there's a problem with this that I just want to make people aware of, and I think it's important to highlight. So the best way to do that is to show you an old spreadsheet that was generated by Steve Sherry at the EDAP. And this is each one of these columns is representative of an early ACMP demonstration project where there were different investigators that were funded to demonstrate that there may be some causal relationship between microbiome and disease. And so for each of these studies, they collected lots of different types of clinical information. And I know it's hard to read, but things like blood pressure, things like the weight of the patient. And what Steve Sherry did was mark using different colors if information like weight had been collected, and also looked at if the variables for those different studies were really comparable across the studies. And it was kind of mind-blowing to discover that typically in clinical studies, I mean, my background is much more genomics, not with projects such as this, that things as simple as blood pressure or medication or smoking history are all collected in different ways. And that makes finding all data sets that are associated with, let's say, a blood pressure range for patients that are male nearly impossible unless you kind of sit somebody down to slog through the data and harmonize it across it to pull that information together. And so what I'm going to identify as a very significant gap in the field as you start to think about all the presentations that you're going to have and that you've already had is that we're collecting clinical data, and it's very hard to sort of reproduce what that information is, and also, more importantly, kind of retrieve robustly across all this project to get information that you can sort of reuse for your own research. So I don't have a slide for this, but right now there's over 10,000 samples at SRA for human stool, like microbiome stool samples, and there's virtually no way to robustly pull all that data down, and there's virtually no way to identify which of those samples came from, for example, diseased patients that were part of Curtis' study. That's not a defect of SRA. They're doing the best job they can to be collecting that information, but there's just not one uniform way that data is deposited into a database. So let me just show you how we approach that for this study, and let's hope or imagine that as microbiome research kind of metastasizes into all different NIH institutes, that they start thinking about issues like this. So the way that we did this was to stand up a data management working group on the ICMP project, where this kind of represented some people data managers that were embedded at the labs, as well as partnering with the data coordinating center. And we did something as sort of silly or administratively simple as this. This is a Google spreadsheet that represents lots of different broad data types, like something like a project or a study or a subject. And you can imagine for a subject, there's lots of phenotypic information that you collect. And each one of these projects or these columns here represent the 3 different projects that you just had presented. And I'll call each one of the data types a node. And what we could do for our purposes was to just sort of click on a node and generate a document that lists all the specific fields that were associated with something like the subject. And what we did was we identified the common data elements. An example could be blood pressure, or it could be gender, or things of that type. And identified either by creating our own control vocabularies to describe that information, or identify internationally recognized control vocabularies to describe that information that would be used across the project. And this is a pretty simple administrative tool for being able to do that, but it's essentially kind of a breakthrough idea with respect to being able to interoperate and share data robustly across projects. And the landscape for NIH data is going to kind of explode even larger than it is now, and I hope people engage in projects such as this. This is not a novel idea, but it's a very important one. So then what we ended up with were these different submitters. And we have one central database that can receive documents known as JSON objects. And once you've got a reasonable way of describing data and attaching keywords to that information, it's very straightforward to write software that handles submitting that information into a common database. And if you're interested in that, come take a look at poster 28, which I believe is on Friday, for our system called the Open Science Data Framework. And you can deposit in what are basically machine-readable documents to be able to capture that information. And we have validators that review, electronic validators that review that information to make sure that it's being marked up correctly. And it's kind of an iterative process. There was no day when we kind of put together and said, okay, this is the way that we're going to do it. It's sort of highly iterative over the course of the project. The rest of the way that the data was deposited into the system, and Curtis' group was responsible for making something called Anadama, which is a data analysis management system, and this has lots of different features to it in addition to what I'm going to describe, but it allows you to make reproducible workflows and handle different dependencies. So if a data set changes in terms of the data that you're searching against, it sort of updates all the information as part of that chain. You can also parallelize information, but we adopted it mostly for its ability to use as a submission tool. So what I just described to you is the data harmonization process that happened across the 3 ICMP projects. You can just sort of imagine expanding the number of people that are participating in this, and having a group of people that are sitting in this local room and kind of handling agreement, defining the common data elements, and go into a common database. what we're using Amazon to do is that each group has access to the software that handles the submission of all that regularized data that's in the database into the external archives. The advantage of this is that the archives, I love them, this is not a criticism of them, but they're overly flexible in terms of the way that they can receive information as simple as, let's describe the forward and reverse primers that were used for a 16S experiment. So at least across our project, there's a lot of uniformity in terms of the way that data was being submitted, which is a good thing. So again, think about all the open data that we have. How would you go about finding that you've got proteomic data, the tablet data, the 16S data that's used in the same process? Well, you won't be able to do that. They all contain the same project ID. So what we try to do is make sure that same project ID travels with all the information. Okay, and we have created a new website, and if you're interested in the details about it, please go to Poster 30. It contains all the information of the subjects as well as the IHP. One of the things that we're very proud of is that we've been capturing protocol information. We continue to have all the protocols from the human subjects as well as the IHP. We're also very proud of an interface, which is a very responsive portal that allows you to click on lots of elements just to describe things like the gender of the patients, etc., and see really rapidly displayed pie charts for all that information. If you select on the pie charts themselves, and it will pass you to a listing of each of the files, and then you can pass those files to a manifest, and then manifest will be tools that allow you to then download that data directly to your own computer or use it in other contexts. And if you're interested in some of that workflow about how you can kind of do that, have a look at Poster 31. All right, let me just identify one last gap that I think is going to be a very serious concern, is our ability to just analyze the data in reasonable time. When we start thinking about volume of data, something's got to happen in terms of being able to do this. And we had a pilot study, and I'm very grateful for the Commonwealth and support this, where we recently held a training workshop to analyze all the data that I just showed you on Amazon. We invited a number of luminaries in the field to present their analysis tools, and we bundled all the analysis tools into one common system that could be launched on Amazon, and then for a day and a half we walked users through the process of doing this analysis. This is really exciting for a number of different reasons. The developers got that kind of direct interaction with the users. The users got a chance to have the developers right over their shoulder helping them out with one analysis. All the tools were placed into one common executable image referred to now as a Docker, which is available to people. Here's all the analysis tools. And this is just a very exciting way of sort of demonstrating the sort of bold new future of how you can do analysis on the cloud. That was really very nice. I'm going to wrap it up. I really very strongly want to thank two senior personnel, Michelle Jaleo and Ricardo, who were basically the people that really led tactical and strategic development of all aspects of our project. Here's the people who actually did the work, and the posters are here and represent different dimensions of the whole overall project, and I'm very grateful to all of them. We're really kind of wrapping up almost 9 years of the HMC project overall, so it was kind of an exciting time for us. But these people really made it happen in very exciting ways. And also want to thank the data management work group for really making a robust set of data, and just strongly encourage people to think about some of the stuff that I'm thinking about with respect to with respect to metadata management, because I think it's going to be a big deal in the future. And there's summary slide on Rob's here, and really very grateful to him, as well as the original sequencing centers that generated the HMP data and our sources funded. Thank you.
So now what we're going to try is a joint QA session. Just as a point of interest here, Walter and others who are running in the background, I guess the webcast is either not working or only working on certain browsers, so if you folks, whoever's in either here trying to run the webcast, if you could somehow double check that over our lunch break, it'd be very good. Thanks. I'm going to ask a softball question, and one of you or any of you can answer. The real motivation behind phase 2, as Mary said, was to ask the question, what other omics properties, what other biological properties of microbiome do we need to collect to really get insight into the microbiome system? And so, even though we worked on feature and birth, IDE, and type ID, those three studies were meant to be more generalizable, but there could be lessons for the larger community. So could you speak to what you thought was the biggest insight you got when you started to collect these other omic properties, and how that might be important to this audience? Go ahead. And Jeremy, pass the mic for you. You'll
Well, my first impression, the answer to that question is looking at the host properties, starting to look at one of the big questions that somebody's alluded to, several people alluded to today, is taking the associations that were kind of identified in the initial microbiome studies and trying to look at what could be operationally understood from them. What is the mechanism, what are the causes, what are the etiologies of the diseases or the health conditions that we're looking at. And I think by starting to look at the hosts, for example, the metabolome, the cytokine profile, or the proteome profile, and how that correlates with the microbiome community states or what bacteria are present, and it starts to give you some kind of idea of what's actually going on in the interaction between the host and the microbiome, and trying to start understanding how that microbiome is affecting the host and possibly affecting diseases that we study, not diseases, but looking at tests, but looking at individual bacterial strains or species. That's the question of how is actually being caused by that bacterial strain or that group of bacteria. So I think the host parasite interaction with bacterial intersection is really important, and by getting a multi-omic approach, we can start asking those questions about hosts.
I would concur. You really do need the host information to get the complete picture. And many of the observations we observe are contextual. And I think that example was just in our case of how from satellites and microbiome DD depends whether you're just obsessive or resistant in certain cases. So you would completely lack that understanding if you weren't looking at information. So I think that's going to be absolutely critical for understanding how disease comes to be and also how managed disease. I think we're going to need that kind of information to be able to implement a motivated study.
So I'll definitely echo both what like Greg said with respect to host property is a place that we haven't gotten an opportunity to look closely at. And what Paul said, as your commentary is regarding metadata, it's easy to think of host phenotype and environment as an afterthought, but having that in the front and organized way helps you understand disease. From the HMP2 in particular, I think one of the biggest lessons that we've gotten has been that there's no one omic silver bullet. The HMP2 has been an opportunity to take IBD and microbiome really slice it in many different ways. And what we're seeing here, I think in other phenotypes is very much like what you'd expect in a single organism, that you're never going to see the mechanism for every phenotype using just one tool, not 16S, not shotgun sequencing. And now we've had an opportunity to use many additional molecular tools, both in the microbiome and the host and IBD, and they've all shown interesting properties under different conditions over different questions.
I don't think you want to ask any questions, but if there are questions we have to get, please go ahead. Hi, the question is about metabolite data. You know what, you might be go ahead and announce, I think, if people are listening, your name and announce my name. Hi, I'm Katie Pollard, and my question is about metabolite data. It's for Curtis and Mike, I guess. Everyone's welcome to chip in. It's really cool to see metabolites sort of going up and down in the pH economic groups and genes going up and down in associations. But this is a question about the future. Beyond the data you've already collected, what are the prospects for actually resolving metabolite changes to specific microbes, hosts, etc.?
Before you leave, what do you mean by resolving?
If I want to understand the mechanisms, and just to know, for example, if a metabolite, and just really specific, if a metabolite that is healthy or unhealthy, can I figure out what microbe is contributing it? Is that one microbe or a collection of microbes? Is it a microbe and a host enzyme that you need? Sort of trying to understand the pathways behind that and the mechanism.
So I'm going to selfishly start with a response. I back to one of my gaps. I think one of the biggest challenges there is just lacking a lot of molecular level annotations and information for typical bugs that we see in the gut and the microbiome. Even someplace well studied like the gut, the majority of gene families associated with metagenome as you know, are not chemically or functionally characterized. So we can look at things like co-variation and find a lot of really nice, strong co-variation specifically between small molecule compounds and either taxon or gene families. And right now that's about as far as it goes until there's more infrastructure for isolating microbes, doing the tough biochemistry to characterize what some gene families are doing, and then cataloging that in a systematic way. And of course, contributing to that computationally with predicting computational infrastructure for computer characterization as well. And I think I would amplify that is that if you take a simpler system, which is just the human genome, there's not a close relationship between discovery that a metabolite is going up or down and knowing specifically what pathway that is associated with. And that, even that is sort of a non-simple problem in the map to bacteria where there's, an enormous number of uncharacterized genes or duplicates or whatever, and makes a very complex problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was wondering maybe if you could think beyond sequencing to other technologies like imaging or other things you might be able to do with mass spec besides the classic things. I don't know, like heavy triple technology. Do you have any thoughts about that?
As what they're saying, I think we'll be part of making these associations like the power of the HMP too, is that we will have these data. It's going to be pretty massive and actually be able to see some of these co-associations across different data types. In my mind, will be very powerful. That is only step one, it's the co-association. And to me, what will be extremely powerful will be the perturbations you do on top of that. Probiotics people take to see how that affects things, as well as drugs people take that will, perturb one particular pathway, one aspect of that, and then you'll see how those co-associations change. I think that will be very, these are humans. We can look at natural genetic variants to see how that, whether they're not mice, we're not going to go into CRISPR cells, to maybe iPS cells, but the point is will be, I think those perturbations will be very powerful for getting into some of the mechanistic aspects you raised. Sorry for bringing in other technologies. I do think they are powerful. I sometimes imaging with microbes a little bit scanning in, so I'm not sure. I do believe that disease tissue imaging is very, very powerful, and we're doing a lot of this now with cancer and other diseases, take image information and co-associated with different omics patterns, and that's been quite interesting for dealing both for some mechanistic understanding as well as for prognostic value. So I do think imaging will be extremely powerful. But I do think that the longitudinal, and again, perturbation experiments will be the most compelling timeline for unraveling these associations.
Just a quick follow-up comment. I think one of the goals of HMP2 is to develop tools to address these exact questions that you're asking. It's not simply the new kinds of biological tools, but some of the efforts going into developing computational tools. And I know that Mike and Curtis and all groups have done that. We've done a little bit of that too. We've got just a couple of posters here that I mentioned today, where some computational biologists in our team are trying to develop new ways to use machine learning and network analysis to look at these associations to get a hypothesis. But it brings us trying to bring us closer to getting a hypothesis that we can test biologically more efficiently rather than trying to do use cases.
Hi, I'm Yair Hard, UC data. So the thing that I struggle with when I'm investigating or thinking about human trials or investigating microbiome in humans is that we're trying to understand what's going on in different parts of the gut. By just looking at the stool or looking at the metabolites in the stool, how do we really understand that physiology? Like for example, when we look at mice, we know that the stool is quite different than what we've seen from mammalian or in the feces or any other part of the womb. And can we really understand physiology by looking at the stool, or do we just use it as a biomarker as opposed to something else?
So I guess I'll start. We've looked at that a little bit, mostly in non-human systems, both comparing stool in a human population we work with to biopsy 16S profiles from different locations. That's typically cross-sectional, and then in primate models doing a more longitudinal within subjects, biopsy across the largest small bowel and in stool. I don't know as much about what the biogeography might be like in rodents. In the primate model, the largest differences were mostly due between stool and other sites were mostly due to a small number of taxa. So that for the majority of taxa, there was a direct linear quantitative relationship between what you see in stool and what you see in the mucosal surface, with a small number of exceptions that were very different, thus leading to an apparently large overall difference. That being said, there are clearly biological differences, so I think the answer to your biomarker versus mechanism question is both. There are some exceptions where you can't necessarily think about detailed mechanism at the mucosal surface from the stool because you're losing bugs or gaining bugs, but there's the bulk of the community is reflected there, and stool represents a really useful biomarker such that in something like predicting colorectal cancer, there works done we work on that. That's where the stool microbiome is literally a biomarker regardless of what the underlying mechanism might be.
My name is Brandon Egger. I work for Digital Age, and I'm personally concerned that many of our Western populations have significant dietary deficiencies. So we're running clinical trials and things, especially in the West, and that probably goes to most adult patients, getting lots of dietary fibers, around maybe 15, 20 gram chops. We look at Eastern populations and the pretty wild humans, their consumption of dietary fibers are significantly higher, 80, 90 grams, some reports. I feel that the data that we're reading about healthy control might be a little off, because we're going to do a blood panel and say, well, that modern medicine says that it's healthy. I think I significantly disagree with that point of view, and I was wondering what it is you guys might do in the future or future studies to try to find better controls, so that we can control a disease individual versus a Westerner. These are really subtle differences between those versus when you go find somebody who lives in a more rural environment, because much more higher levels of dietary fiber, they're going to be significantly different and much more easy to improve disease versus healthy individuals. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll correct that. I mean, your point's well taken. First of all, what is the definition of healthy? It's always relative, and it's possible none of us are truly healthy at some global definition. I think one thing we are doing, your point's well taken, that Western diets are generally, Justin Sonnenberg, I'm sure we'll talk about this, is one of his big launches. Western diet is very poor in fiber compared to other groups. And one thing we are doing with Justin as part of our ACT project, we actually have people doing a number of fiber perturbations. Those data came late in the study, so they're sitting there and we hope to analyze it. They're getting analyzed in more superficial fashion now, but digging deeper. So I do think we need to tear that apart. But you do analytical tenets of it. Even when people do these things now, they still throw in complex mixtures. I would argue it'd be nice to know exactly what each fiber is doing to each individual, so to personalize this. And that is not being done as far as we tell, at least in a systematic, systematic fashion. Anything that's common source are quite large, right? You have lots of people, lots of different individual microbiomes, and you want to have lots of different fiber types. So we have short chain, long chain, hydrophilic, etc. Really positive negative fibers. The combinations get very large, but I do think those studies need to be done so we can know exactly what the individual fiber does or an individual other supplement to each person and customize that way. That's my belief.
Yes, this is from Rutgers. So it's exciting to see that we start to have longitudinal multi-omic data sets. And so there's going to be a huge opportunity for knowledge discovery. But if you look at the data set, they are still the so-called big small data. So you have a huge number of variables, but a limited number of samples. And also the data set has a high specificity, so a lot of zeros because of the individual difference. So it's very important to have a very meaningful way to reduce the dimension. So the first attempt would be technical analysis, but we know it's actually not the right to analyze data at a different textual level because we are lumping all different things in one new data set. So what would be a biologically or ecologically meaningful way to reduce the dimensionality of the data so that we can really go after such kind of data sets?
But I think we're all in a big response here. But I think don't underestimate the power of longitudinal data. Yes, this is not a number of individuals, but in most cases we're looking for deltas, we're looking for changes across situations where I think we're going to see in our case, whether it's what's happening in viral infections or pre-diabetes versus not. And that really empowers you in a way that you may not appreciate. You can be very statistically robust for individuals. You don't necessarily need large N if you're following perturbations of similar sorts across similar individuals. So you can easily tease out significant responses. So I think that is the power of the studies we're doing. So the fact they are longitudinal really does give you an empowerment that's very different. You have to shake this whole GWAS 100,000 case per 1,000 control mentality to appreciate the power of what we're doing, I believe.
Okay, you see that much to think of a continuum from large-scale epidemiology style studies where very many individuals usually shallow data down to very small-scale like model system studies in great depth. HMP2 and PD are correct me wrong, but I find somewhere in the middle. So that it's targeting quantitative depth in a medium-sized population with the hope of getting the best of both worlds as we micromap more towards detailed mechanistic understanding. For instance, I'm hoping that you at least comment on, that even if the data is sparse, what you could all agree on, it's still what there's lots of paper, be statistically robust, right? That's fair.
You also see a lot of information at the pathway level. You can take discounts to the individual models level here on the power pathway as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. There are methods for working with data that are of the wrong dimension and force about statistics as well.
I think we're going to do that. I'm wondering, just like a lot of the research is usually at a certain time, and the very thing we want to do is then the sample collection and the samples you can see in biobanks, you guys all have access to. So I'm wondering, is there some sort of plan moving forward to make those samples available, either to people that are part of the research community that might be developing new technologies to analyze the initial samples or things like that, or other downstream materials?
I think for phase one, there is a catalog of DNA extracts that are available, but they're not freely locally available. They're meant to, they're set up in such a way that you have to collaborate with one of the clinical centers that collected the sample. So if you're interested in DNA extracts from the healthy core study from phase one, and there's not a lot of them left, but there are some, I would recommend you contact me directly.
I guess I'd like to go a little meta on your question, though, which is like if we think about every presentation that we're going to see today, or anything that's funded by NIH, one opportunity that's out there is it'd be very nice to have essentially kind of a PI registry where you could ask the question, okay, you published this, but are the subjects available for reconsent? What are the samples available that you can pull out from the whatever resources that are associated with it? Because that's another thing that there's just this tremendous loss between all that really those incredibly rich resources that the taxpayer paid for and may be available. And when you go to SRA, or not to get on that data, but when you go to any public repository, that's not explicitly stated in the repositories. So just to echo what everybody else is saying, we have the biggest repository of data in HPC study. We're about 5,000 samples that are stashing in our biobank, the research library microbial science registry. We did that with the idea that we would leverage those in the future studies in our own movement in collaboration with others, and we're very willing to do that. The issue is the main testing facility and the interaction, and we can have financial resources for curating and processing these samples so that we can distribute them, and I think we can do that and try to work out something like that. But it's something that's going to have a collaboration with us. We're happy to provide. I don't want to cut into what hour we're actually recording the poster session. So the first place is the poster session will be today. Also, there's a speaker. So make sure the posters that you ordered lunch, the KDF desk, the space desk for you, lunches I believe are down here on the lower lobby. That tent, that big white tent out there on the Master Marketing hours. So go out there, enjoy yourself, network with people you haven't met before, and come back at 1 o'clock. Okay, everyone. Welcome back for lunch. I like to be right on time, so we're already 3 minutes late. I'm going to be proud. I'm going to treat my next time. Okay, so this session is, sorry, I should myself. My name is Lisa Chapman, and I'm the program director at the National Institute of Environmental Sciences, where we are studying how the microbiome impacts the environment as a whole. If you would like to be interested in that too, feel free to find me at the meeting in 2 minutes. So in this session, we're going to be talking about the tools, technologies, and approaches for microbiome research that go beyond sequencing and try to identify what are the big needs, gaps, challenges in that area. So we'll have a session just like we had the last one, where we'll have 4 talks right in a row, although we're going to have one talk, one sort of mega tag team talk,
patients with symptoms, we gather some biomolecules, and we count up the percentage of sequences that come from each microbe or from each gene, make these stacked bar plots or pie charts, and then try to associate that with what's going on with the patient. And as we know, many interesting associations are detected. What I'm interested in is moving beyond these associations towards mechanism and trying to understand what's going on at a genetic level in the microbe that would be explaining those associations and what associations might be missing with these stacked bar charts or pie charts. The reason I'm worried about this is that even if we can characterize microbes at the level of individual species, we know that different examples of that species or populations of cells have different genes. And it touches on what Howard spoke about in the keynote about what is a species anyway. And we're interested in the same question. And we know, all of us, from looking at genome sequences, that the gene content differences different across different strains of the same species. And my lab developed a tool to quantify that using shotgun metagenomics data. So we took two people from a variety of studies that were available in the public domain, and we asked for the sequences that represent a given species that are shared between the two of them, what percentage of genes are they sharing? And here's an overview of the results. So the horizontal axis is what percentage of genes are shared across people. So each dot is a pair of people, and they are organized by the different species. And you can see that there's a lot of variation, with some species having only maybe 10% gene content difference, but some of them having up to 40, 45, even 50% of their genes different between two people who harbor the exact same species. And of course, if you go up to genus or a higher taxonomic level, that's even more true. And we then looked to see whether the gene content was organized according to where people were from. And the answer is it depends on the bug. So for some bugs, there are these huge differences between gene content that have nothing to do with where someone's from. But basically, the star phylogeny and the different strains get everywhere. In Howard talked about the question about, we got into talking about dispersal limitations and whether there's barriers to gene flow. For some species, there seem not to be. Whereas for others, like Duracell that I'm showing here, there's a lot of structure with clades of based on either the SNPs, the nucleotide differences in their genome, or their gene content, really organizing by continent. However, but with some sharing of these two clades here between North America and Europe. The other reason that I'm worried about getting down to a genetic level rather than a taxonomic or a gene level description of the microbiome is that even when you have the same species in two people and you look at genes in the four genomes that are shared, so they have the same species and the species has the same gene, those genes harbor genetic mutations that make functional differences in what that gene is doing. So these are different species. This is Human Microbiome Project data, and in red are between host differences. So across these different microbes, on average, about 1 in every 100 acres, so 10 to the minus 2, 1 every 10 to the minus 2, base pairs are the genetic mutation between people. And even within hosts, we see genetic variation maybe every 1,000 or 10,000 base pairs. And it differs across the different pathways, of course, in different species, but there's frequently something like 25% of those mutations that I'm describing here change the protein coding sequence of the gene. So they have potential to be functional, high potential to be functional. So the idea that I want to put forward for sort of a future view of the microbiome is to study microbes in the human body at the level of genetic mutations, just like we do in human-based precision medicine. We're going to sequence people and then give treatments and diagnostics and prognostics based on your genetics. Why not do that also for the microbes? And of course, this extends to other types of multi-omics, not just genetics, but you can say the same thing of the proteomics and the metabolomics as well. So we developed a concept called metagenotyping. It's bioinformatics tools for doing it, and the idea is to identify these gene loss, gain, and mutation events that I was just showing you pictures of to confidently be able to call those within the populations of cells for each species present in a metagenome. And the reason, besides the two I've already presented, or the reason I'm the one doing this and not someone else, is that I come at microbiome research from an evolutionary perspective. I spent a lot of my career studying the evolution and genetics of the human genome, and of course, therefore, think about how form and function change through genetic modification. Also, being at UCSF on a biomedical campus, I'm thinking a lot about what the host care about, which is, of course, the chemicals and biomolecules that are presented by the microbiome and how the microbiome cells are interacting with those cells. So those reasons make me very interested in understanding this sort of strain level, subspecies level genetic variation, and being able to do this metagenotyping. So why is this not more prevalent? Well, it's really hard. First of all, there's a lot of challenges in any kind of analysis of metagenomic data, and these would apply to trying to genotype the microbiome as well. I'm not going to go into some of the talk today, but as Curtis mentioned also this morning, there are other groups looking at all the different sources of error. We wrote a review last year that goes over some of them. Many of them are common in any kind of genomics or multi-omic studies, and whereas other ones are things we as a field had to work out that are specific to studying pooled samples of communities. Think about how fast are the cells dividing, what are the sizes of the genome, what's the size of the target that you're even trying to sequence, and what are the unknown species and genes in a sample all lead to systematic differences in the relative measurements of other things that are there. So the knowns. And so this is something we spent a decade thinking about, and then I literally thought we did 6 months or a year on 10 years ago. But I feel like as a field collectively, we've discovered a lot of these gotchas, and in many cases have the tools either in the lab or bioinformatics to handle them now. So doing this is absolutely critical to the type of data sharing and data analysis that we heard about this morning. So that's just general. When you get down to doing this metagenotyping, there's some additional challenges. And one of the biggest ones is that most of the species that are present in most microbiomes have no genome. And so if you want to identify polymorphisms and say that they're occurring in a specific species, it's very helpful to have this kind of genome-level reference data. We and others are thinking about ways to do genotyping without mapping to a reference genome, but that is a big challenge both computationally and in terms of the how do we think about approaching that problem. So in the first half, my lab focused on reference-based genotyping, but we know that it's incredibly limited by the availability of reference genomes. What I'm showing here is an estimate that we made using universal single copy genes to understand how well databases of tens of thousands of genomes that have been sequenced so far cover the species-level diversity in different types of microbiomes. And you can see for the human microbiome, it is better than some of these other environments, but it depends where you're from. So our databases are very biased towards industrialized microbiomes. And it also, I'll point out the mouse microbiome is down here below 10% of what's there at the species level has been sequenced. So that's just how much we take the mouse in the model. Even though it's hard, I think that metagenotyping approach is very important. So I just want to give you a couple examples, and I will say totally scratching the surface of what I think is possible with metagenotyping. I'm going to show you a couple of the two examples of what we've been able to do so far. The first one is that we can now disentangle taxonomic signal and functional signal in metagenomic data because we know gene presence absence per species. And this is the work of Patrick Bradley. And what I'm showing here is an example output. I'm not going to tell you the particular about the methods, but I'm happy to talk to you about it. This is a particular gene family whose presence is associated with Crohn's disease, not overall, the overall abundance, but presence in specific species. So on this side, we're seeing the association of this gene with Crohn's disease, and here's the presence of it in these organisms. And these trees mirror each other beautifully, and you can see, like for example, here there's a group of taxa that have the gene, and then in gray one it doesn't. And here those specific strains are found in Crohn's individuals, and the one that doesn't have the gene is not found in Crohn's individuals. And I'm just explaining that as a binary, but it's actually a quantitative variable. So we can associate the presence of specific genes in specific taxa with diseases, with body types, and we can also just look at the natural variation of that across people. And this is different, just to get back to what I started with, it's very different than looking at how abundant are different taxonomically, or even just looking at how abundant are genes. It would have been meshed with either of those approaches. And importantly, I would say that the proteobacteria are contributing a lot to the signal, and yet are a tiny piece of the stack bar chart that might be overlooked in a taxonomic analysis. Sorry, that's amazing. Sorry. We have been able also, in cases where the genes that we identify having these interesting patterns of being variable across people or body types and being associated with diseases, we've been able, when they are annotated, to look at how the individual components of the pathway map out. So we found that in particular across HFP and the controls from a number of publicly available case control studies how the individuals, the type 3 and type 6 secretion vary a lot across people. But it's not the whole pathway, it's specific genes. So the components that sit here in the membrane and these CAT and SECSRP parts of secretion are fairly not variable across people, as shown by their genes being shown by the blue block. Whereas the pieces of the machinery that are sensing signals inside the cell and then doing the secretion in either a host or another microcell, these injectors, are highly variable. So it's specific components of the pathway that we can disentangle and try to move towards mechanism. This is of course impossible in most cases where we find a really interesting signal, but we have no idea what the genes do, or with a specific mutation. Even if the gene is there with a mutation, say a non-coding mutation in a gene, what is the effect of that going to have? So this is one of my gaps and challenges for knowledge in the future is to try to understand that. And the challenge is identified by this number. We have a short paper we're together right now where we evaluated all available gene families that we decided databases and found that 53% not only do we not know what it does, we have not even a single protein domain that's annotated. So there's nothing same as ours. And so a lot of them have a domain, of course, we don't really know what to do. So that's a huge gap. The last thing I want to say is that even without knowing what genes do, we can use this genetic variation for